Hi, co-op sponsors. Congratulations on your 2020 grant award. In this video, we're going to be covering how to request a reimbursement. And the reason this one is somewhat specific for co-op sponsors is we're going to cover how to request a seed money or how to submit a seed money request. That's going to be unique to the co-op grant program. So this video will kind of be tailored to co-op sponsors. So what we'll do is we're going to go to the Argo 2020 login page, and this is in the test system, so the URL you're seeing is a little bit different than normal. And we're going to go ahead and log in, and we're logging in as our test sponsor, the City of Arlen. And you're going to notice you won't see available opportunities necessarily in your system, in the live system. This is just the test system, so you may or may not see this. You'll always see your inbox, which may or may not have a message in it, depending on if you've opened the messages here. But what you'll notice is there's no area right now that says My Tasks. And that's because once you have an active grant, you may not always have something to do in the moment that you log into the system. So a reimbursement request is initiated by the sponsor, which means it's not a task until you create the task. All right. Now, in order to create a reimbursement in the system, the first thing you're going to have to do is find the application that you submitted that's been approved and that will be managing throughout the life cycle of your grant award. And to do that, we're going to click on the Applications tab here, and you're not going to really probably need to enter anything in the search criteria here. You could choose co-op grant, but chances are you're not applying for every kind of grant that Recreation Grants offers, so you probably can just click search. Now, when you click search, there may be several applications that you created during the application process, and some of them are going to say apply, or some of them may say application withdrawn, because the first year that we had the system, a lot of folks weren't quite sure once they'd created an application how to get to it, so they just created another one. In this case, what we're always looking for is the status of whichever application should say active project. You're only going to have one of those very likely. So that one will very likely be the one that we're going to be working with in this particular example. In this case, the City of Arlen has an active project here, and if you highlight it, it'll tell you what the project name is. For some of you, if you have multiple grants that you're managing, this will give you specific information about whether or not you're clicking on the right option. But we'll click on the area under name that links directly to this application, and it'll take us to the Forms menu. I mean, you guys have seen this during the course of time that you've been managing your project, and during the application process, and then during the period where you sign the grant agreement. So what we're going to do to start a reimbursement is we're going to highlight the area of this top menu that says Related Documents and Messages, and we're going to see the option to initiate a payment/reimbursement request. All right. When we do that, it's going to create a unique document flow just for the reimbursement. Now, that is different from the old Argo system, where when you logged into your co-op grant, there was just one task that said ask for a reimbursement. And when you went into that task, you just basically uploaded a whole lot of receipts and put in the dates that the receipts covered, and that was the end of it. Our system is going to ask a little bit more of you, the new system will. However, you're going to get more out of it. It's going to be much more easy for you to tell at any given moment how much of your award that you've already been reimbursed and how much is left to be reimbursed. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this payment reimbursement request form. And that's going to load as you see here. Now, when we first come in here, it's going to populate your sponsor name, the address you've provided, and which payment request number this is. This is number 1 for us, all right? This is the very first payment request. And it'll populate some information, the project name, the project number that we use to track, the PO number that our fiscal department uses to process reimbursements for this account. One thing that you're going to see is you're going to have to select a fiscal contact for this particular reimbursement. And the reason we added that is because sometimes the fiscal contact changes throughout the course of time that you manage your award. And if it does, we need to be able, for any given submission, any reimbursement request, to contact the person that submitted the request or who is serving as our contact for that particular request. In this case, the only person in my organization right now is the City of Arlen manager, and if I want that person to be the fiscal contact, I can add them and then simply click save. Okay? That's the first thing I would do. That just gets the form rolling. And if you do not see the person that you would like in this pull down menu, what you'll need to do is you'll need to look at the Argo resource video for how to add someone to your sponsor organization. Once you've added that person to your sponsor organization, they're going to be available in this drop down menu, okay? So it may be necessary for you to exit out of this form, go into your organization area, and then add the person that you want to be the fiscal contact. And then scrolling down, what you're going to see is a new reimbursement form. Now this can be a little bit intimidating to work with when you first see it. So here's what I would suggest. When you received your grant award, you were emailed a budget details form, and it looks a lot like this form, right? This is a great thing to have as a reference point. Maybe not for your seed money request, because you probably don't necessarily know what that money is going to go towards quite yet. You might know some of the elements, but not all of the elements. Either way, this tells you some pretty important information. This gives you not only the total funds that you requested, but it tells you what subcategories that you requested funds for and what got approved, right? So in this example, the personnel and fringe totals are here, the food and travel totals are here, and this breaks down the elements of your project into subcategories that you can get reimbursed against. Now, the reason this is important is you're going to have a much more successful reimbursement request if, when you submit it, you match what you're asking for to the lines in your approved budget. Okay, these are the ones that our grant coordinators have meticulously reviewed and approved. So the closer you can match your request to the items that have been provided and approved in this budget, the more seamless the reimbursement process is going to be for you. So that's just something to have on hand. The other nice thing about this is this form will tell you how much your award amount has been and what your previous reimbursements are. Every time you generate a reimbursement, you're going to know what you started with and how much you've been reimbursed so far. That can be a very handy tool at any given time. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put in the service period here, and this video is not programmatic. This is a technical video, so if you have questions about how to identify the service period or even how to express the kinds of items that our fiscal team wants in the receipts area, invoice reference numbers, those are going to be addressed by our program staff and our fiscal staff in some different resources. So you're going to want to thoroughly review the co-op grant management modules that were presented to you after you signed your grant award. And you are going to also want to double check with our fiscal resources for the kinds of elements they're looking for. But for the purposes of this, we're going to say our reimbursement period is May 1 through May 30, okay? And we're going to simply put seed money request. Our activity date is going to, it might change. There might not be a specific date. If you know what that date is, I would go ahead and enter it. If you know who the vendor is, great. If you know what the date of the invoice will be, great. But the key here is make sure that the request for seed money is known, right? And the payment type, you're just going to choose seed money from the pull down menu here. And in the cost category for now, you can leave that blank, okay? For your file, you've been provided a seed money documentation form from your co-op staff, and that is available in the resources in the Argo 2020 resources. You should be able to go to the co-op area and find the form. Just for your seed money request, you're going to need to download that form and supply it here, okay? So I'm going to choose a test form that I have submitted, but the primary elements that you're gonna need are this form that you've downloaded for seed money, the line item here, the payment type to be seed money, and then you're gonna have your requested amount. Now in this case, this grant is going to ask for $2,600 in seed money. You won't need to worry about retainage. You might need to worry about match depending on what the elements of your budget are. For the purposes of this one, this sponsor's not going to match anything. And we're going to scroll back. You're going to notice when you scroll over on the screen, it's a pretty big screen. We're going to click Save. It might take a moment to process, but once it's saved, I'm going to have my seed money request, right? This is a pretty handy tool to use as well. When you get to the point where you've submitted multiple line items or multiple items and you want to look at this entire form, go ahead and click this button that says print version. And that is going to allow you to download a really nice copy of this form as it exists once you filled it out. You'll see it comes right here. It'll download in PDF format. I'll have the beginning of the form here, but then you have this really handy layout here that shows you the entire scope of your request. Now this link may or may not work, but this will show you. Essentially, it will link to the receipts that you've provided. If this is a seed money request, in this case it is, it'll link to the form where you specify that you intend to use these funds for approved cost for your grant, okay? And once you're comfortable with what you filled out here, all right, you're gonna simply come back here into your payment request form. You're gonna choose status change and you're gonna choose payment reimbursement request submitted. And that's all. That's all there is to it. At this point, our fiscal staff will receive an email that there is a seed money request in for them to process. And if there are questions, you're going to get an email stating that more information is required from you. Maybe you uploaded the wrong form, or maybe some element of your seed money request did not match the programmatic requirement. Either way, you may be asked to provide more or different information. If you are, when you come back into this form, once it has moved into the status that says more information required, you will see an area here where you'll be able to provide additional information. Now, right now I can't provide it because the request has only been submitted. It has not been reviewed and you've not been asked to provide more information. But at the point where you have, this is where you'll provide more information, and this is where our staff will make notes about what information is needed, okay? And that's it. That's it. Your seed money request will move through the workflow until it reaches a point where it can be processed. Now, this is a key. Usually for a reimbursement, receipts are provided at the beginning of the process. This is our workflow for the entire reimbursement process, okay? Receipts are provided at the beginning of the process. But in the case of seed money, you can't provide the receipts until it reaches the end of the process. So you'll receive your payment before you actually are asked to provide receipts. Something to remember is the payment will be moved into an area that says once it moves out of processing and it's paid to you, it will turn into something that says seed money documentation in process, which means that once you acquire the receipts for that seed money expense, you'll need to come back into the system and your payment will show up in the task area, your My Task area of your home screen, and you'll then need to come and make the reimbursement request match what the expenses were for that amount, okay? So at that point, you'll be able to bring back up this form and resave the line items as if it were a new reimbursement request, okay? So you'll have already gotten your money, but at this point, it'll be important for you to match up what you use the money for, all right? And that's where this comes into play, right? That's where the budget that was sent to you comes into play, because what you'll want to choose is if you had $2,600 that was allotted to you, you'll want to note how much you used of that on each of these expenses. And then when you come back to this form and you're correcting it, you'll then be able to choose what kind of payment it actually was. Was it a cash? Was it a check? How did you pay them? And then what the cost category was, right? Was it fees? Was it food and travel? Was it outdoor service project? You'll bill against the appropriate line item, and the seed money request information that's here, you'll be able to update that with your actual receipts, okay? And that's how you handle a seed money request. I know that's a lot of information. I would like to encourage you, if you have questions, our program staff and our fiscal staff are happy to answer them. From a technical perspective, I am happy to answer any questions you might have as well. You can always email us at rec.grants@tpwd.texas.gov, or you can call our office and ask for assistance from a member of our staff who has expertise in the area that you need. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for hanging in there with me through this video, and hopefully this will help you move towards being able to submit your first reimbursement request successfully.